back to Georgia Living. I'm Chris Evans, joined by my wonderful co-host, Céline. This week, we're diving into the latest on community developments, including a new groundbreaking project in Marietta, Cobb County's stormwater funding, and a hot debate over ADUs. We're also going to dive into some major updates on affordable housing at a big project in Atlanta.
That's right. Plus, Chris got to tour the HGTV Smart Home right here in Marietta. We'll chat about a new mixed-use district in Dunwoody. But first, let's start with what's been going on in our family this week.
So, Céline, we've been busy around the house.
It's been crazy.
It has been insane. Like,
oh my gosh.
Tell our listeners a little bit about what we've been doing.
Well, when you have 3 children, they touch the walls all the time. And even if I scream at them and yell at them every day, and I mean every day, don't touch my walls, it's going to happen.
It's an uphill battle.
Yes, I've been painting doors. It's so fun and so interesting. Painting, grouting, do-it-yourself stuff to save some money, right?
I think everybody has to. And there's a lot of things that you can do around your house to vastly improve the quality and the feel of your home that don't involve bringing in a contractor.
No.
So this weekend, we made a little bit more project headway with the banister and our stair railing, which when we moved into this house, the banister, like, you could just basically push it over.
And what happens is that the children come down the stairs, then they do the Sound of Music type of twirl at the very end.
Yeah.
And then they pull it even more, and then over the years, it started coming off completely.
It's like they all wanted to be Gene Kelly singing in the rain.
It was a very big hazard in our house, so we fixed that.
Yeah, last year the way that we fixed that was we installed a new newel post, which is not a very big job. It's fairly easy to do with a couple of YouTube tutorials. And this weekend we went through and we cut off the toppers to the upper middle or the middle and upper sections of our other newel posts there. And
are they called finials? Like
finials, yeah, I think so.
Maybe.
So they're basically the toppers, and we put on more ornate ones to match the newel post that we installed at the base when you walk into the house.
Yep. Immediately they looked at it trying to figure out how to do the singing in the rain thing with those.
Yeah.
So yeah, they tried it out immediately.
And it's much more sturdy. Not a hard project to do. Just involved taking a little saw and sawing off the topper that was there, and then getting a drill and putting in some double-threaded screws into the bottom, and then just screwing it onto the post. So
another small project we did was energy saving. So the film that we got is a mirror on one side, and it's like a tint for your car, but this is for windows, and our home faces east and the back is west. Opposite.
The back of the house.
The back is east.
Yeah.
So in the mornings, we would get completely just hit with this direct ray of sunshine. And right now it's not bad, but in the summertime it gets really hot, especially towards the afternoons when it's setting and there's long summer days.
Oh, yeah.
So we have been slowly, because you have to cut these by hand to the exact dimensions of the window pane, but it has made a huge difference, don't you think?
I think it has. And, I'm constantly told, hey, just replace the windows. Look, our house was built in 1978, and I really feel like we are losing a lot of that charm that older homes have. And I personally like having old, wooden, leaky, drafty windows in the house. I don't, it's more the quality. Like, all of our windows are solid wood. All of them work. They're all in great shape. So I don't want to replace them just for the sake of, creating more things in a landfill and, maybe saving a few dollars a month at the sake of losing that charm that I think these old windows have. So
but you do realize that time catches up to you, right?
it eventually, yes.
For example, the technology in glass making has changed since the Jamestown days, right?
Oh, yeah.
They used to have the glass blowing, then they make it flat, and then you'd have that weird divot, like round-looking coaster shape in the middle. You don't really see that here, but in New England, you do see a whole bunch of this round thing. Probably a lot of Southerners wouldn't know what it is.
Oh, no. Not unless they're in like Savannah or the coastal area where you've still got a lot of those historic homes.
You'll see it. So yeah, technology changes, so you might have to change with the times.
I'll hold out as long as I can. I will fight this battle because I think down here we've got this habit of it's old, replace it. That's a very Southern thing. You go up north and you just see old stuff that's been maintained for decades and decades.
You do realize our history, though.
Yes, absolutely.
Atlanta was burned.
Yeah, it's part of it.
Had to do it again. That's why we have a symbol as the phoenix. But really, you should talk about new construction, the Beazer Homes.
Yes. So we have, there's an article that came out this past week, and Beazer Homes has officially started construction on Greenhouse. Greenhouse is a massive 591 home community just north of downtown Marietta. It is their largest project in the metro Atlanta area to date, and it is right in our backyard.
Greenhouse will include townhomes, ranch-style homes, and 2-story houses, all certified as zero energy ready. Now, that's really popular nowadays. And that's a big deal. It means that homes exceed all local construction and energy codes. This could save homeowners hundreds and thousands on utility bills from not having drafty windows.
They're also preserving some of the property's unique features like a lake and a historic cemetery. On top of that, they're going to add some trails, pocket parks, so little parks within the community and gardens, and it's going to make this a really unique community.
Now, you know that by having a historic cemetery, that really means that they couldn't come to an agreement to move the cemetery.
Yeah, so interesting fact.
That happened here.
It happens a lot. So with older cemeteries, you can actually relocate a cemetery. But in order to relocate a cemetery, you have to have the permission from all of the living heirs of the people who are buried there. And if you cannot find living heirs, then you can't move them. So when it comes to historic cemeteries where people have the last family heir died, 50 or 100 years ago, that cemetery is now permanent. Like, laws will not allow that relocation, so they build around them.
I mean, would you want to be moved? No, right?
Absolutely not.
If you didn't have a mouth that works?
Yeah, like, let me be. This was my final resting spot. I got to choose that before I left the earth. And, on Sandy Plains at Piedmont Road,
that's another one.
That new development, one of the reasons it took so long to redevelop that area behind, or I guess on the opposite side of the street of LA Fitness, across the street from Dunkin' Donuts, that whole area in there, they went back and forth for years because they did find most of the living heirs to that cemetery, but they couldn't get the last one to sign off on it because they had planned to relocate that to a local Baptist church that was down the street.
That I get that one, how hard they tried though, because it's right in the middle of the development.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. It's not at the edge or anything.
Céline, do you think that features like trails and pocket parks make a big difference for families considering a move?
I do think so, because we are such a car-dependent society in America, and the percentage of people who walk to work are concentrated in Manhattan, really. Everywhere else is really car-based. So having those places right near you, when you have little children who utilize these parks and trails, you push their little buggies now, or your dog, that pet ownership is really, really high right now. So to go really far to get to these really is the norm farm here. And to have these little places so close by is such a luxury that I think people are really attracted to. Don't you think?
Yeah, I got to agree with you. I think that the walkability factor is becoming a more and more important part of so many people's lives. Like, nobody wants to drive 20 minutes to go and run around for an hour to drive 20 minutes home. They want to just leave their house and come back to their house.
Right, and not lose that much time, because we spend years in our cars.
Yeah.
Of our lives, right? Mm-hmm. In bed, sleeping, and then there's car driving. That takes up a bunch of our time.
Yeah, and for most of the Metro Atlanta area, their commute is going to be at least 30 minutes each way, each day. So to add more driving on that for your recreation, I think it's a great thing that they're adding in these little pocket parks. In one of our listings that we just put up last week, it's over in Centennial Lakes. They have a ton of this stuff: little parks, playgrounds, dog walk areas, multiple pools, multiple tennis courts, and it's just a wonderful feeling when you get in there. They are generally subject to HOAs and master communities.
Right.
But for those looking for that lifestyle, I don't think you can beat it.
What do you think about the zero energy?
I think it's beneficial, right? Mm-hmm. Is it going to add a lot of value? It's going to add a little bit. I think where it shines is that your home purchase, you're going to feel confident that it's outlasting today's standards. It's built better than today's standards, so that in 10, 15 years, when today's standards match up to the quality of the build, you're going to be ahead of the game, right? Your house is built to tomorrow's standards, not today. So it's going to be more desirable and more, it might be a great feature for your next buyer when you go to resell.
Yeah, I mean, not saying that a house that isn't zero energy ready isn't sellable, I mean, those houses are just fine too. This is just an extra feature that's on top, like another bell or whistle.
Exactly. Right? Listeners, would you consider living in a community like Greenhouse? Let us know your thoughts on social media or leave a comment on the YouTube channel.
Let's move on to another big topic in Cobb County. They are the accessory dwelling units. They're called ADUs for short, and these are smaller secondary housing units. They've sparked quite the debate locally, and I even just read that the news this morning that Denver has allowed citywide ADUs.
That's incredible. ADUs are being promoted as a way to increase housing options and affordability, especially for multi-generational families. But not everyone is on board. Critics argue that they could change the character of neighborhoods, impact property values. They also argue that parking and zoning regulations would be challenged. So there's a lot.
Mm-hmm. There's a packed meeting last week with residents voicing strong opinions on both sides. Some feel it's a necessary step towards diversifying housing, while others are really worried about how it'll affect zoning and infrastructure here. One of the things, so think about it. If you're a homeowner in one of these neighborhoods, how would you feel about these ADUs popping up nearby? One of the points in that meeting was that they went and, was it San Diego? I believe you were listening with me. San Diego. Okay, so somebody got up and said San Diego has ADUs and they used to like it there, but now that they have ADUs, it's difficult to see when you're backing out of a driveway or, a place. And then the parking is also difficult. Now that's, playing devil's advocate as well, right? Like, so, what do you think if you're a homeowner in one of these neighborhoods?
I think that there needs to be a voice of reason. So one of the challenges with Cobb County's discussion on ADUs is around the other changes that they're adding along with it, which could make it a lot. There's a larger potential for big changes with the supplemental changes with the proposed ADUs. So what do I mean by that? Right now, Cobb County limits housing to no more than 2 unrelated people. There is a legal definition for that. in what defines a family. I think it's like 4 degrees of separation. It's in the official code of Georgia. I'm not a lawyer.
And what we were listening to is historically this came about because of the Olympics and all the people who came in for construction during that time. Were you listening to that part?
I must have missed that part, but the 2 unrelated people, specifically in Cobb County, that proposal, it's not like 50 years old. That came about as a direct result of Kennesaw State University and multiple roommates in residential areas creating this this boarding house kind of feel or fraternity house kind of feel in residential communities. There were a lot of issues that were solved by the 2 unrelated people rule. It means that you can live in a house with essentially your immediate family. But once you get outside of a certain degree of separation, like they're considered unrelated.
Is this common for other places?
This is very common. Athens has this. Lots of counties throughout the Metro Atlanta have that regulation. It protects residential communities as being residential communities and it keeps them away from becoming boarding houses. Now, one of the changes proposed in the regulations it makes the definition of related much more broad. So you can have like 3 or 4 cousins living in a house, and that is not where we need to be.
I feel like a lot of people have cousins.
A lot of people have
lots of cousins everywhere.
So it
cousins
takes away the legal. What they did is they essentially struck through the language in the current code that says as defined under the OCGA, whatever the state definition of family is. So that's one challenge. The second challenge is that they're adding more parking. They want to be able to add an additional car to parking when homes have this, which, again, big issue because when you get into more parking, you create more wear and tear. Because, I mean, if you're looking at one home, it's not a problem. But when you're looking at 50 homes, all adding an additional spot, that's 50 new cars in a 300 neighborhood. If you have 300 homes in a neighborhood, and let's say 50 of them build ADUs, now you're bringing an additional 50 cars into that neighborhood. It wasn't built for it.
So proponents of this would say, hey, we can't afford housing anymore. We have to go all the way out to Cartersville or, somewhere else, Gilmer County, I don't know.
Now, I'm a big fan of ADUs because we do have some massive housing challenges in our day. We're seeing, like when we moved in, we had one neighbor that was a multi-generational household. Now we have 5.
So I get that, but what about the schools and all the children that come with the ADUs?
I am not a proponent of being able to build an ADU and then rent it out. I don't think that that's a good use of our space. I don't think that it's a good use of our communities that are zoned single-family residential. I don't think you should be able to convert that into a multifamily, essentially, by use of ADU. I think if you build an ADU, that should be there to solve a problem. That should be there to, maybe add a guest house, or, if you've got children who are at home, giving them a launching pad, giving the in-laws or your aging parents a place to stay that's close to you but still has privacy. I think it's a solution to the multi-generational problem. I don't think that we need to be able to go in and turn every home into an Airbnb.
Yeah.
Listeners, where do you stand on ADUs? We'd love to hear from you, so share your thoughts with us. Let us know on YouTube. Let us know on Facebook.
We have lots of thoughts for and against. We have no clue.
Exactly. But while we're on Cobb County, let's talk about the $3 million the commissioners just allocated for stormwater projects. This is the last of the county's federal COVID relief funds, and it's being directed at infrastructure improvements.
Right. This comes after years of debate and public outcry, especially following the floods as of 2021. Well, it's a step forward. Chairwoman Lisa Cupid reminded everyone that this doesn't solve the long-term issue of funding.
Do you think prioritizing stormwater over housing needs was the right call?
Well, I think that we need to talk about what stormwater is first, right?
Yes.
Because a lot of people, a lot of people do own homes, but they don't have to deal with stormwater when they're renting, so they might not have any idea what it is.
Yeah, so the stormwater runoff, basically that's your drainage system. Whenever you see, big culverts, which are the giant pipes, and the drains in the street that are redirecting that water away from the streets, that is the stormwater system. And our Cobb County system is aging. It's not to the point where it's going to be sustainable for the next couple of decades. So, they needed to make the funding go towards that. And we've seen some pretty big flood situations around here, too.
Yeah, we really have. So, stormwater, I think this is just a necessary cost, don't you think, of living in a place? Because, yes, when you develop something for the first time, everything's brand new. But, yeah, they do go under wear and tear. So you have to spend this money.
I agree. I think that, when we're going to have more people moving to this area, so you just got to make sure that the infrastructure is there for it when that happens.
I'd rather keep up with it than let it go and then have a giant project or a catastrophe.
I'm just really happy we're spending the government's money and not our own local money here. So if you've been affected by stormwater issues, let us know. All right, now for one of the highlights of my week. I want to talk about this HGTV smart home.
That is so cool.
In Marietta. I got to tour this yesterday. It's a mid-century gem. It's not a mid-century modern. This is a contemporary home. Let me tell you, it was incredible.
So this HGTV smart home is one of those TV show giveaways, right?
Yes. So it was their annual sweepstakes. They have a few of them throughout the country. This was the one in Georgia. It was a very unique home. Everything was controlled by an iPad.
Right. It blends historic charm with modern technology, features smart systems, concealed storage, and a butler's pantry that I'm still dreaming about.
I love the workstation there. It has a little remote. You push the button up or down, and the desk opens, and a monitor lifts out for your computer.
That's so cool.
So cool. They had the Samsung frame TVs in the living room and in the media room. Just very cool how you can display art. And not to mention the backyard. I mean, private retreat. And big congrats to Sarita Kohlberg, who won this $1 million prize package, including the home, a luxury SUV, and $150,000 in cash.
Now, that doesn't come with the house, though.
No. And
she's keeping that.
So she elected to take the cash option. So she got the car, she got the cash. But the way that this works, and I found this fascinating, is when they don't take the house goes back to the studio to sell. The house gets listed. It's going to be a madhouse of bidding. They already had lots of offers. This was the first home that wasn't a fresh build, ground up build. This was a renovation. And everything's included. All the furniture, the house goes as is. So when you're making your offer on one of these, you're offering to buy the house, and then you're also offering to buy all the technology that comes with it, from the Napoleon grill to the frame TVs, all the Nest thermostats. It was really all the blackout curtains are controlled by remote. Just a very cool house.
If you could add one of those smart features to our home, what would it be?
Probably the remote control curtains. Those were so cool. You could either tug on them, you just give them a little pull, and then they'll automatically close, or you could control them with a remote, and you can set them to timers. I thought that was the neatest feature of the whole house. That
does not sound kid-friendly.
It definitely not. But another great feature that they had were in the wardrobes for the primary bedroom. Being vertically challenged myself, it was very floor floor to ceiling, but you could pull down your wardrobe and bring it down to your level. So you can basically store things all the way up to the ceiling in there.
It's Irish heritage friendly.
Yes. Yes. Great for us short little Irish leprechauns.
So, there's one other point, though, that I think we need to make in reselling these types of homes. This is a general idea, though, that we were talking about yesterday. And that's the fact that if you have the nicest home in a uniform neighborhood, what happens? So,
generally speaking, you never want to be the nicest home in the neighborhood because...
Isn't that weird?
Your home will depreciate, or it will appreciate at a slower rate than the homes around it. Now, when you go and you overdo everything, and a lot of times you're going to get some negative, right? You might spend more than the house is worth. So this is really interesting because it's a little bit different than just a normal homeowner just going and building their home to their dream in a community.
Right.
Because of the exposure that this home got, it can kind of go either way. It could either be the collector's item that's going to be important to the resale of the next buyers, and people will overpay relative to the community because of that.
Right.
Or it could follow the traditional path, and the property will depreciate faster than the other homes around it.
Be careful.
You got to be careful about it. You also got to be careful with technology because it evolves and changes. So hopefully this stuff will be around for a while so that it doesn't, get outdated.
It's kind of like the older homes that we go into that have the intercom system still installed, or the central vacuums that are still there with
They still work.
They still work,
Just
but do a
older
lot of people use them? Not really. Let's head downtown anyways to talk about the affordable housing, or lack thereof, in the Gulch development. Centennial Yards paid $8 million in lieu of fees, or in lieu fees, instead of providing 61 affordable units at their new high-rise.
Yeah, so this is... Critics argue that the city undervalued the fees, missing out on millions that could have funded affordable housing elsewhere. It raises questions about how inclusionary zoning policies are being implemented. So basically what happened here is, as part of the zoning that the city allowed on this Gulch development project, they had penalty fees. So for the developer, if they did not build the 61 affordable housing units, they could instead turn around and pay, I think it was like $131,000 per unit that they did not build.
But should these developers be allowed to opt out with money?
And
right?
I mean, that's the challenge, because any developer can go in here and they know their numbers on the back end. A developer will come in and say, all right, if I got to pay $131,000 to not build an affordable housing unit, that means I need to build something that's going to make me a lot more than $131,000 in this area. Mm-hmm. And it's got to be worth me paying that fee and then still being able to make a profit on top of it. Where
do you think the cost gets passed down to?
It's always on to the buyer.
Right.
Always on to the buyer.
So really, that's the long-term impact that I think this will... think about not just this development, but future developments. 4 or 5 of these payments, and then you've got more expensive high rises that result from it, right?
I think the big issue here is how the city in the zoning approved this with such a low fee, because if at $131,000 a unit, it's hard to build anything for that price.
I don't think you can.
So if we need affordable housing in the city, they should have made this fee substantial enough that in the event the builder paid it, the city could then go and have affordable housing built using this. And I think that would have been a more equitable solution.
I agree. I mean, the median sales price is $400,000.
That's gone up.
Well, let's just say for whole numbers, right? 400,000.
No, as in it's gone up over the past years. It used to be $225,000.
Oh, yeah.
In like
If that's what you
2018.
mean, that's
Yeah,
what you
it
mean,
is more than doubled, or it's about doubled.
So being at, let's just say a whole number of 400,000 right now, that's only a fraction of that cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, if the land is already acquired for as a sunk cost, I mean, in other projects, you can go in and basically build from the ground up at zero cost to the land.
Well, listeners, what's your take? This in lieu fee system, is it fair? Should it be reevaluated? We don't know. I mean, hey, comment.
Absolutely. So finally, let's talk about Campus 244 in Dunwoody. This is a mixed-use district, or this mixed-use district is creating quite a buzz. It's got a new hotel, a sustainable design, and unique dining options.
The Element Atlanta Perimeter Center just opened. It features EV charging stations and a boutique cocktail lounge. Isn't that fun?
No kidding.
It's part of a larger project aiming to make the area more walkable and vibrant. Again, the whole walking thing, right?
Mixed use.
Yes.
It's live, work, play. This has been the playbook of environmental engineers or urban planners for the last decade and a half, is about creating less wear and tear on infrastructure and highways by bringing more urbanization to more suburban areas. Live, work, play is the way to do that, and I think it's really picking up as a long-term trend here. It's sustainable, it's cost-effective, people love it, and I think that we have a lot of opportunity here with this. Céline, do you think projects like 244 is the future
Of development?
Yeah.
Of suburban development?
Yeah.
No.
No.
I do not.
Okay.
I think that it is appropriate in certain situations, but in the suburbs, you have a lot of families with children, right? The way that Atlanta is made is a lot of people will travel into downtown for work and then go back to the suburbs to live. Now, if we're talking about putting these in the suburbs, it's fine because we still do have people who are childless, right? And not saying that you can't live there with a child. It's just that when I went to lunch with you maybe 2 weeks ago to one of these mixed use places, we were downstairs in a wonderful restaurant. I thought it was delicious. That's where we had the grouper sandwich.
Yeah.
But I remember looking around and thinking, this might not be great for our children, because knowing our children, they run
out
around,
into traffic.
right? They're gonna be in traffic. They're gonna, play downstairs. They're gonna be bothering store owners. I could see all these things happening. Now, they are very well behaved, normal children, but they're children.
Yeah,
they're regular children. So we're not Tokyo, where it's normal to see children walking around unsupervised, going to and from school, just walking. But I think we as a society have a long way to go if we're going to make this a norm. It just doesn't mix with what we use our suburban areas for.
I think you've got a great point there because, people we saw this massive migration from the city out into the suburbs when the pandemic hit, right? Everybody was getting sick. What's the first thing people wanted to do? Get away from other people.
Yeah.
Right? They wanted to get away. They got these work from home jobs. They said, all right, let's go get a house that has an office and I'll work from home. And when that happened, people didn't want that on top of each other. They wanted to get to a place that had, a quarter acre, a half acre, or 5 acres, or 100 acres. They wanted their space.
I was so surprised with how fickle people were, that they can just say, nope, we're going to move, and not think about, could this only be a 2-year thing or a 3-year thing? What's going to happen after?
I think,
right?
I don't think it was that the people that actually did move were fickle at all. most of the people that I talked to and that we actually worked with during that time, they had been planning it for a while.
Really?
But they moved their timeline up. These were people who knew what they wanted. They knew that they eventually wanted to get out of the city. But when that pandemic hit, that was the catalyst. That was the
I've talked to some regretters too, though.
Have you?
Yes. They moved way too far out, and now their lives are still where they were. So they're really regretting it.
Well, I guess then we all have we've got some different experiences based off of the clients. So it's across the board. Maybe our listeners, if they've got a great story about relocating, whether you love it or hate it, maybe you'll share that with us in the comments.
Well, so how can developments like Campus 244 balance sustainability with economic growth?
This is where the live, work, play comes in, I think. If I'm a business, I want a captive audience, right?
Captive meaning like physically captive?
Meaning physically they're captive. I want them to walk by my store every single day. You can't leave. I want it to be so inconvenient for them to go to any other business that, like, it just makes sense.
The convenience was really attractive.
It's the convenience. Just think about it. We were in Florida this year for a conference for you. We stayed at a resort community. They had a live, work, play at the entrance. And where did we go? We didn't get in the car and hop off. We walked to the stores and the restaurants that were there.
Right.
It was the convenience factor.
But that's a vacation place.
No, that's
right?
But here's the thing is that there are people that don't cook, that don't have the space for like the 3 freezers that we have in our suburban, monstrosity of a house. And they need that convenience level.
Monstrosity.
Well, it's 2,700 square feet. It's not monstrosity, but it feels like
it's not a McMansion.
No, it's definitely not.
No.
we're definitely, we feel like we would rather have more homes than one big home. Right. But that convenience level will spur economic growth. Businesses will pay more to be in an area where they have more retail walk-in traffic.
That is true.
Especially in the modern day of e-commerce, where nobody's going anywhere anymore except for either to pick up an order that you've already placed or the rarity of window shopping. So,
I'm half Japanese, and it's not so much like this anymore, but before World War II, and before everyone rebuilt, there used to be mixed-use houses like this in Japan. Now, they were a little bit different because the ones that we're seeing here are, you've got a corporate tenant or some sort of, tenant that might not live there. And then you have 2 houses on top. So it's kind of like a community thing. Now, back then in Japan, they would have a single family home and then a storefront.
Yes.
And they were all mom and pop shops. I like that idea a lot because it promotes entrepreneurism, right? It promotes the local economy, and it's the convenience factor still there. Plus, you've got mom and pops everywhere banding together and supporting each other.
I think that's really cool. One of the challenges that we're naturally going to be faced, and it's going to be interesting to watch happen, is just the corporatization of Main Street. We've watched it happen on the residential side, and we're watching our dentists be bought up by giant conglomerates.
It's happening with veterinary medicine as well.
Medicine, yep. You're seeing the expanse of that. We're losing a lot of our local charm, and our local pharmacies are all corporate. So
the same thing happened with Just Add Paint in Wasilla. They because that's yeah.
So we've got this little paint shop. It was a craft kind of gallery where you can go and sit down and grab a little ceramic thing and paint it with your kids. And we did that this year while we were up there with the family. We thought it would be great. Let's go and make some souvenir mugs that we did. We made them all Alaska themed, or Celine's is a strawberry themed. The kids did their own design.
I really like strawberries.
She does.
I don't like eating them. They're cute though, and they have to be round. Okay.
Well, they'll kill your best friend, so we try not to keep them around.
Sorry.
So when we just saw in the news the other day that they shut it down. It just wasn't enough business to go around for it, and that was in a retail strip center, kind of like that live workplace stuff. So it's going to be a challenge, but that is all for this week's episode of Georgia Living. So thanks for joining us as we covered everything from our family updates to some major developments that are impacting our community.
Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share the podcast with your friends and family. We love to hear from you.
Till next time, stay connected, stay curious, and always
Bye, y'all.
Stay Georgia.